Half-Life is one of the most legendary first-person shooter franchises of all time. I mean, maybe it isn't anymore, I'm not so sure about its status because the world has moved on while Valve, the original developers of Half-Life, kept the series on their freezer for more than 10 years until they needed an excuse to develop an expensive ad for their VR goggles. I mean, when you are the owner of the largest digital storefront for video games, and you already make fuck you quantities of money from CSGO and Dota 2 skins alone, no one can blame you for calling it quits while you're ahead of the game and ending one of the biggest franchises around if you want to. I mean, it's not like you ended all of the games of the entire thing with huge cliffhangers while you kept promising a resolution to everything that you had no real intention of delivering. Right? It's not like you did that, so it's fine. It's fine, everything's completely fine. But on the other side of the fence, we have the fans, and being the obsessed fucks that we are, we always end up doing some crazy things when we don't get new content. Some of us with actual talent will end up working hard and developing quality products inspired by the things we love, while others will end up making stupid YouTube channels where they nitpick about bullshit nobody really cares about. I mean, man, imagine being one of those losers. Well, the Crowbar Collective, as they are now calling it themselves, I heard that they changed names during development, but the Crowbar Collective are so talented, they decided to drop the pretenses of aspiration completely and just remake the first Half-Life on the Source engine. Yeah, it's an unenviable task to try to rebuild the foundation for one of the most beloved franchises of all time, but after playing it through to the end, I have to say, this is actually really good. Like, really, really good. Like, fantastic good. What started as a mod took enough time that it might as well have been an official Valve release, and ended up catching the eye of Valve themselves and getting the approval to be sold on the Steam store as a standalone title. And the name of the game is Black Mesa. Now, I don't remember much about the original Half-Life. I played it many years ago, quite possibly using the weirdest way to play it. I played the PS2 port on a PS2. It sounds like it should be a remarkable experience to play that on a PS2, but honestly I don't remember much of it at all. So I'm not going to make any comparisons here to the original game, and I'm going to review this from the perspective of Black Mesa as a game on its own. So if you want a pure comparison, there is probably some other video on YouTube that can compare each individual part. I'm going to talk about the game on its own. So anyway, what is Black Mesa all about? Black Mesa puts you on the shoes of Gordon Freeman, a normal scientist working at an abnormal research facility called, wait for it, Black Mesa. After a very long train ride that introduces you to the setting of the game, Gordon must go through another shorter tour where he puts on his fancy science suit and goes to his lab to do an experiment, and then whoosh, everything goes to hell when the experiment fails. And now there's aliens everywhere, and they're killing everything that moves. So it's up to you to control Gordon as he must run, think, and shoot his way through encounter after encounter if he wants to live. The setup itself is simple enough to explain. It's not a complex plot, but what is harder to put into words is just how atmospheric this game is. From start to finish, the game mostly lacks a soundtrack, leaving just the sound effects of the environment to immerse yourself into. That and the spectacular lighting work that accentuates the mostly dark maps of the game. Both of those factors combine to make for an eerie experience as you explore the structure of the Black Mesa facility, making you paranoid as you can never guess what's going to show up when you turn the next corner. And in the worst case scenario, the silence will be suddenly cut short by a burst of bullets and blood whenever violence occurs. And violence will occur. Quite a lot, in fact. This is a classic style FPS game after all. The guns feel appropriately satisfying to use. I said it once and I'll say it again. You can always judge an FPS game by its shotgun, and the shotgun here feels powerful and is powerful, having a longer range than in most other games, though it is also very slow to use and reload, so it isn't overpowered. Overpowered is not the name of the game here. Every single piece of your arsenal has its strengths but also drawbacks. Diversity in utility is your main strength, and having to learn which tools suits best for each situation is what you're going to need to do to survive. Each individual encounter feels more like a battle of wits rather than a battle of reflexes. I mean, I don't want to say you can't run and gun, since someone is bound to post on the comments a link to a video of a hardcore fan masterfully dodging out the bullets and finishing the game with no damage, but that is not the intended experience for most people. Rushing the enemy with your machine gun on every encounter is more likely to result in a waste of ammo and health, plus a stop at the quick save station annoyingly often. Play this one more carefully than other shooters and you will be rewarded with a satisfying experience with very different nuances from a lot of the other classic shooters in the genre. Helping you accomplish this task are the game's physics, or rather, its objects. Anything that's not nailed to the ground can be moved, and that little help on changing the environment can go a long way. From helping you move boxes to shelves so you can jump to the top and find some hidden supplies, to setting up explosive barrels near doors and shooting them as the enemies come in. And you can even throw grenades back at the enemies, without the need for a contextual QuickTime event prompt. The grenade is just another object after all, so you can just pick it up and throw back where it came from. All of this also does wonders for immersion, since none of it requires contextual inputs that can only be activated at certain times. All objects can be manipulated at all times, and it's up to you to figure out how to creatively use what the game offers you. Even if it feels limited at times due to the game's linear, mostly claustrophobic design, don't be deceived. A surprising amount of situations have multiple ways to be tackled, and even alternative pathways to the next section. Get clever enough and you can also easily skip some of the scripted events. And talking about pathways and scripted events makes for a not so smooth as I thought segue into talking about level design. The level design is definitely where the game shows its age. After finishing it and doing a little research, I've managed to confirm that indeed, many changes were made to cut out the more annoying and frustrating moments from the original game, but it is still by far the most archaic element if only in comparison to everything else. I never got really stuck in a level so much as lost for a few moments until I figured out which rock the game wanted me to climb to reach a random hidden hole that got me to the next part, or which lever to push among a group of random props, or which button to shoot, and you get the idea. When the next step is hidden in a clever way, you can feel strangely rewarded for finding it, almost like it was a mini puzzle by itself. But when the next step is hidden in complete obscurity, you can end up feeling like a dumb potato stuck in a room for 10 minutes, shooting anything and everything until you finally unlock the door and say the classic cliche line out loud. How did the devs expected me to figure that out? But there are many worse criticisms to give a game than sometimes I got lost for a little while. So, this game is a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. Oh, but before I forget, let me talk about the soundtrack for a bit. The soundtrack does exist, and it is amazing. It just feels really weird when most of the game is really atmospheric and made up of tense shootouts laced with paranoia, and then suddenly some really kick-ass rock track starts playing as 1,000 enemies break through the windows, and now you've got to kick-ass in a more traditional FPS way. I mean, it's not bad. The whiplash is just that the whiplash is hilarious, and I laughed every time it happened until I reached the end game, where the soundtrack was mostly atmospheric and very fitting, and then suddenly I kind of missed the kick-ass tracks. You never really know what you have until you lost it. And a little warning I want to give, but I couldn't figure out a proper place to put it, so I'm gonna put it here, is that this game has no easy mode like the original Half-Life had. Normal is the lowest difficulty you can choose. And while it's not really that hard, since it's mostly about setups and cleverness rather than a pure dexterity challenge, the game does get quite a few very hard encounters the further you go, and I feel like more casual players should be warned of this fact before making a purchase. In conclusion, none of these reviews really matters to me as much as this last point I'm going to make. Black Mesa is a well-structured, long, fulfilling, first-person single-player campaign, with everything from the level design to the more scripted set pieces tailor-made to give you the exact experience and feelings the developers wanted you to have. And we just don't have much of that these days. I mean, sure, we just got Doom Eternal and that was fantastic, but it used to be. There was a time first-person shooters weren't mostly focused on the multiplayer, and they had more to offer on the single-player side than a cinematic equivalent of a 4-hour movie, assuming that they have single-player at all. Black Mesa is a reminder of everything a first-person shooter can be, delivering not only a good experience, but a masterfully crafted, unique one that could only be delivered in a franchise such as Half-Life. And with Half-Life Alyx out now, when the time comes to finally unleash Gordon Freeman again out in the world, I hope Valve looks to this game and realize what makes Half-Life different from the other shooter franchises, and that this dedicated group of fans are the ones that set the new bar, the ones that Valve will need to overcome. Okay then, so we reached the end of the video, yay! Well, I wanna take this moment to thank you for watching this to the very end. It really matters that you watch this to the very end, since YouTube measures engagement these days, not just views. And if you could subscribe and like and comment and stuff, that would be great. Or like, dislike and leave a negative comment if you didn't like it. I encourage discussion on the comment section. And I also want to take this brief moment to thank Leadhead. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. I don't know. I'm going to use the cards to put his video here. I don't want to thank him because he personally helped me or anything, but he did put out a video on what makes Half-Life special, and that video is what encouraged me to pick up Black Mesa in the first place and gave me a new perspective compared to the little memories I have the first time I played. And I wanna put it on the cards here so you can watch his video as a thank you for inspiring me to play this game and make this review in the first place. And I hope you enjoyed it and have a good time. We have quite a few more reviews coming soon, very, very soon, so I hope you subscribe to the channel. Thank you and see you next time.